some of the strategies that we can use to better equip the next generation. And one of those that we'll talk about with Tim is how you can support parents and past clients to support their kids becoming homeowners and just more financially literate. But as we kind of frame up that discussion, we can go different directions there, Tim. But I want to share a little bit of the opportunity and current strategies that we're deploying as ambassadors as part of First Home IQ. And then Tim, you can be able to build off of that and say, here's an opportunity I see that ambassadors or others can utilize to really be effective. But before we get started, or as we frame up that discussion, Dave, I'd love for you to share. You posted on LinkedIn earlier and had some really great thoughts about the opportunity that we're discussing today. So do you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah, I would love to. And I made a post on LinkedIn this morning. I actually wrote it this morning, just being inspired that we're going to have Tim Braheem, one of the greatest loan officers in history. Not only what drove his success, what drove his leadership on many stages was what a great database marketer he is, and what an incredible coach and leader he is. So I wrote this post because I really want the mortgage industry to recognize the opportunity we have in America. The front line to the wealth gap in America is who owns real estate versus who rents real estate. And I put this in the post, and the data is super clear. Renters have an average net worth, and according to NAR and the Fed, of $10,400, while homeowners have an average net worth of $396,000. By the way, that was as of 2022, so it's a couple years old, and it just came out from the Fed literally last week. I read it in the Housing Wire, where equity in America has risen to 35.1 trillion. That's up 85% from 19 trillion in 2019. So guys, the wealth gap is widening. And while it's never been harder to get a home, there's an affordability crisis in America, there's never been more down payment assistance program. And my thesis is, and why, I was excited about co-founding this with Kristen and Todd, is that I think the mortgage industry, if we leaned into this problem and every time we ran a credit report, we not only helped that customer with some financial literacy, but we leaned into, do you want to help your kids get into homeownership younger and faster? We could make a difference. And then one last thought, Kristen, because I gave a presentation the other day that most people over the course of a lifetime have 8 to 12 pivotal moments in their life. And for most people that achieve homeownership, that first home is one of those 8 to 12 pivotal moments in a lifetime. And so I'm just pumped to have Tim here showing us how to lean into our database, be the one that helped a family drive one of those pivotal moments through education. So let's roll.
Wow.
First of all, database management is about relationship management. I know a lot of great loan originators in the United States, and I happen to have been fortunate enough to have been one of them in the past, many years ago. And there are a lot of common denominators of successful originators that I see. But maybe the number one common denominator is that the successful originators that do a lot of business in all markets have the most deep connections. Whether you have made this connection or not yourself, this business always has been, and always will be a relationship business. And it's a business of connecting with other people. Connection is a very interesting topic to explore when you start to peel back the layers of the onion. It's impossible for me, as an example, to connect with any of you who are not on camera right now. There's no way for me to make that connection because I can't see you. I think it's also an interesting message that you should ask yourself when you show up to a Zoom call and someone has taken the time. And again, I'm not being condemning here. So I'm posing a tough question, but I'm not offended in any way. I want to be clear on that. When someone's taken the time to prepare a presentation and you show up and you don't have your camera on, I think that you should take a look at what's the message that you're sending to that person. What you're really saying to that person is what you have to say isn't important enough to me to be present with you. Now, why is this an important topic to cover? Because when we talk about database management, it is about connections, right? So those of you that have sent, have made commitments as an example to your customer base that you're going to stay in touch with them and proactively manage their debt for them, and then have not done so. That happens, and I'm not going to say that it's okay, but you can recover from that. Okay. I mean, I know that a lot of originators are like, well, gosh, it's been 2 years since I've called anybody in my database. I'm kind of sheepish about it. I don't even know what to say now. Well, as my good buddy Tyler Osby, who's a terrific loan originator with Fairway Independent Mortgage, says, it's like, I got bad news for you. They're not sitting around wondering why you haven't called. Okay. So, or maybe that's good news for you. Okay. I mean, they've forgotten. So you don't have to be so worried about it. But what you do want to be worried about is, what level of connection do you have with these people that are essentially your outside sales force? I mean, this is your annuity income. Anybody that you've ever done a loan for. And every one of those relationships is important. We love to talk about the subject matter of loyalty and a lack thereof in this business. I hear it a lot. Borrowers aren't loyal. They're always rate shopping me. Realtors aren't loyal. They pass out 3 business cards, or they give me a deal and they give somebody else a deal. Okay. Loyalty is not a gift. Loyalty is earned. Loyalty comes from the party that you want to be loyal to you feeling safe, that they can put their guard down and they've now connected with you. I want you to think of anybody in your life that you feel loyal to. Why do you feel loyal to them? Because they've been kind to you. Because they have put their interests to the side and chosen to serve you first. And that's where loyalty comes from. Because when we feel safe and we feel seen and we feel understood and we feel cared for, we lower our guard. And it is from that place of a lowered guard that connection can be forged. So if the formula is the loan originator with the most connections wins, okay, or the loan officer with the most friends wins, as I've been saying for 25 years, then we have to look at what creates connection. Well, connection is created by putting our interest to the side and putting the interest of others first. So when Kristen first brought First Home IQ to me, she did a really nice presentation. We were on Zoom call for about an hour, and I just took in the content and I took notes. And all I can ever do, you guys, is try to put myself in your shoes. I mean, I don't do loans anymore, but I did loans for a long time, and I coach a lot of people who don't do loans at a very high level. So for me, it's about like, all right, what would I do if I were them? So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about it from that perspective, and I'm like, well, shit. I mean, this is terrific content, and it's important content. And it's true. Like, that's the beauty of it, is that like everything that Kristen and Dave are talking about is true. It's like there is a lack of knowledge that exists within the young adults in our country. And it's an epidemic of ignorance. Okay. And we all know the stats. I mean, all the successful people, the multimillionaires, and even just people who have financial independence, almost all of them got there through real estate investing. So there's a formula and there's a path that's been paved, and you guys can be the pavers of that path, or the teachers of the direction of that path to walk down. So as I was watching her presentation, I was thinking, what would I do with this? I'm like, shit, the easiest thing for me here is that I would go into my database and I would offer free classes to all of my clients to teach their children, starting at, I don't know, the age of maybe 14 or 15. I mean, we have to maybe mastermind on that right now. Maybe I haven't really thought that one through so much. Like, what is between this age and this age? Let's say it's 15 and 25. Okay. We want you to invite your nieces and nephews and your kids and your grandkids. Okay. When you expand it, when you think about it that way, you may have 500 people in your database, but when you look at it through that lens, there could be 1,500 youth that they could invite if you really market it correctly. And you really put the time into developing a really tight presentation that's highly valuable. I mean, my God, look at Robert Kiyosaki, okay? This guy that nobody heard of before, that everybody knows of now, wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If that doesn't tell you what you need to know about the desire for this kind of content, I mean, Nothing else will. I mean, that's an international multi-million times over bestseller from the exact same path, right? Like it's the exact same thing we're talking about here. So what I want to mastermind on today is what's the presentation and how do we market it and how do you get people to it? And, you may not be a great presenter yet, okay? But if you take this seriously and practice it, like I spoke in June in Las Vegas for the first time, and I don't know, maybe about 8, 9 years. I've not spoken on a stage in forever. And one of the things that I had said on that stage was that, a lot of people think that Barry Habib, as an example, got dropped out of the womb onto a stage, stood up as a newborn and knew how to speak publicly. You know, no, Barry Habib's a great speaker because Barry Habib practices. I practiced my presentation over 25 times, and it was a 90-minute presentation. That's a lot of hours put in. And I thought I did a good job. Like, I mean, I was proud of my efforts, and I got asked back for next year. I share that with you because I want to make sure that you understand that, like, this is a niche that you could develop that could be like a superpower of yours. Like, it could get viral real quick. Like, you do a great job and you crush it. And maybe you put together a little course of like 3 different 45-minute sessions. I don't know if there's enough content for that. And you incorporate the IQ quiz into the equation, which is a brilliant component to it, right? Because it creates some measuring of retention and comprehension of the material that was delivered. But think about how viral that could get pretty quick. Like, hey, if you found this to be valuable, would you please tell your relatives that have youth between the age of 15 and 25 about the next one? And you advertise the next course. And before you know it, maybe this becomes just like one of the things that you do consistently that's constantly generating the next generation of first-time home buyers, parents who, you can get into loan product that's very important for co-signing, you know, there's a lot of legs to it is my point. And I'm getting verbose at this point, and I want to make this a mastermind. Um, so I want to kick it over to Kristen and Dave and see if they have anything to add. And then what I'd love to do is for us to just kind of brainstorm here, use the collective intelligence of this group to figure out, all right, what are the things that we could do to create a new pillar of business for you?
This is so, so great. And yeah, we do have many presentations. We have 10 at this point, different presentations ranging from basic money management all the way through how to buy a home. And then we have activities and things like that that you can incorporate. But I think what would be, in my opinion, would be really great is if people, yeah, like you were talking about a series. I mean, that way people can continue to show up for those and also share the word with others to show up for those and create real space for Q&A, because the research that I've done is really focused on this distrust that consumers have and the next generation has with the industry and with anyone that feels like they're in sales in some way. But if you're showing up as like, hey, you can ask me anything, I mean, even the classroom presentations that we've done, a lot of the students talk about their favorite aspect of this is being able to ask questions. So anyway, I'm loving the direction of this. Dave, do you have any thoughts you want to add?
Well,
You're unmuted.
first of all, Tim Braheem, every time I share a stage with you, you wow me with, I think, a bonus gift to everybody. The importance of personal presence and calling it out again, not to shame anybody who aren't on here, but it's so true. Like if you can't see someone, if you can't connect with someone, you're not building relationships. And it is absolutely true. While I founded Mortgage Coach on helping educate people on making the best mortgage decisions. At the end of the day, it's about, I did that when I founded Mortgage Coach. It was to create a unique connection with people and a deeper connection that went beyond the transaction. So, Tim, a quick question, because one of the things I've been on this journey now, and I've had this conversation with people at parties. I integrate it into my interviews. And the thing that has really surprised me while we're creating content and it's targeted to getting the next generation into homeownership in their 20s, it's really families. Like parents need to know how to do this. And so,
Mm.
what are your thoughts on? I really think the niche is I want to educate your family. Like I want to help you help your kids, and I put on these classes that are designed to help families overcome some of the financial challenges into getting into homeownership. And I want to help this community. I want to help your family um, buy their home as young and fast as they can. It's around homeownership readiness, and it's about families. So it's not about college kids, high school kids, it's families, and then letting people decide what age they invite their kids. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, look, if you want to have an 8-year-old on the call, I'm not going to tell you not to, right? I mean, it's like, and I love the direction that you just went with families. And the reason that I love that is because I don't know that I just said this or if I said it in the prep call, but we had 5 minutes before, but the key to a parent's heart that unlocks the door to their heart is through their children. And when you use the word family, immediately I could feel it in my heart. Like, yeah, like my legacy is important to me, right? I mean, when you're a family and most people are family people. I mean, if you have a family, you are thinking down the road about what you want your legacy to be. You want your kids to be taken care of. You want them to not struggle. So I think playing that angle, Dave, is very important. I liked how you've couched into the subject matter of family. We want to educate your family to make them, as knowledgeable when it comes to investing in real estate as possible or whatever. I mean, I think that's really well said.
Well, you might be the first person where I ever heard, I serve families, not files. Like that has always been
I'd love to take
a
credit for that, but I don't believe that I ever
I
said
don't
that.
know if you are, but I mean,
Confusing you with someone,
yeah,
but
but you've always done that. I mean, that's always been how you've rolled in terms of just really treating people as people and turning
and
your clients
educating
into
them.
family members, like business family. So,
Yeah, I think that the angle I saw the comment there from Kate, and just now from Renee. I'm glad that you like the way Dave took that. I want to serve your family. Boy, think about it. When you say it that way, like I want to, my goal is to serve your family long term to create generational wealth. You want to talk about connecting with somebody. You want to talk about lowering somebody's guard. My guard comes down when you say that to me. It doesn't go up. It doesn't feel like you have your own agenda. It feels like you care about me and my agenda. And now connection can be forged. So I think I mean, this is perfect, but let's open it up to everybody else. I mean, we see I've got Lisa's hand up. Lisa, fire away. Let's hear questions and or ideas as to what you guys think.
Yeah. So first, I just a kind of a housekeeping thing. When I went to sign in for the first time on Q, I didn't get any notification emails. So I went to the website to put my information in to receive and to be able to receive information, and then they started firing through. So just a heads up on that part.
Okay.
thank
I
you.
have a daughter in 7th grade, and for me, I would love to go to her school and area high schools
Mhm.
and start having that conversation. And I think maybe the first part about before you jump into the home buying thing is really talking about credit and kind of showing them, right? Like, okay, so if who in here has a credit card, right? Who in here, is it, something that your parents got for you? Is it in both of your names or just your name? Hey, do you know what happens? You know what your credit score is for, explaining what that's for and what the impact is if they pay a bill late or if they go over their limit, and then put that in a real life thing, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when they're, buying a car or buying a house, and how much that could cost them in the long run. And almost like a shock factor, so they understand how important credit is, so that they're more responsible at it before they even start having credit history versus playing catch up because they spent, and maxed out credit cards when they were in college. So I think having that kind of conversation is important to have earlier in the conversation. And then with that, they go home and they share that information with your parents. Did you know how much this changes things? Right. And it starts conversations, and that then attracts the parents to come in too.
So it's interesting as I'm listening to you share that you're reverse engineering it. First of all, I had written a note like when we were talking about like having courses or classes, like more than one. I was going to ask Kristen, do you guys have one on credit? Because I think that that is a great, important class to teach a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old. I happen to have I happen to have two stepkids who are 10 and 12, and they are consistently referring to, well, you can just put it on your credit card. Now, they don't get that from their mom or from me because neither one of us have any credit card debt. They get that from their dad, who has an extreme amount of credit card debt and is constantly scraping every month to make ends meet. That's from a lack of education as to what that can do to you. And if you really want to talk about a mission of really helping, create the next generation of educated home buyers, I think it does, to your point, Lisa, start with credit, or at least that's early in the conversation. I'm not sure that the lift, I love the idea because I had also written a note about like, are there youth programs that you can go teach at, like the YMCA or like an after school thing or whatever? You took it directly to the school, going to the school and saying, hey, I'd like to come in and teach your high school students on credit. I think that's a great idea. The one thing, if we're going to look at it from like a win-win perspective of where do you all that do mortgages for a living win in this equation? I think that my intuition is that's a little less effective, or maybe even a lot less effective than starting with your database, because your database are your pre-existing relationships. And if you want to really cement those relationships, my guess is if you do these, you're going to have people calling you afterwards and saying, hey, you know what? I want to buy my kid a property now, even though he's only 16 or 18 or whatever, or, I want to buy my kid's going to go to this university. I want to buy a condo in that town so we don't have to pay for student housing. You're going to get deals from different angles. I think if you go to the high school and you educate the kids, it's a noble cause and would be beautiful. I'm just not so sure how many of those kids are going to go home and talk about you and then have their parents call you. And if the name of the game here is for you to get loans as well as teach, my intuition is the database is the place that I would at least start, but I could be wrong. That's just my thought. Love to hear from anybody else. I saw somebody had their hand up. There we
Hey,
go.
Tim, and I want to insert one thought because Krista and I have done some interviews with loan officers that have taught in school. Hitting and using the database, I think, is really the way to control it and drive the scale and scale this idea. But I just want to remind folks, like, you don't have to lead the whole class. I mean, we're having people that are using the quiz as a teaching tool, and literally you could spend a lot of time just going through the quiz, having people interact with that, and then that could be half an hour of everything, and then all of the money milestones, whether it's credit, because hey, by the age of 18, they're going to be signing the potential of signing student loans and getting targeted for credit. All of those money milestones, we have very specific videos, and you could just play that on Zoom. Like I could use a feature right now and play those videos on Zoom where the loan officer or the realtor delivering the class, like you can be the frame, but you can use the content that we've built to deliver the experience. But Chuck, you had a question. Oh, Krista, do you want to say something?
I was just going to add to that real quick. Yeah, it does not have to be a presentation, in my opinion. Like if you share a video and then we have some discussion questions you could include, it personalizes it, opens it up for discussion, and then you can speak more, I don't know, openly, I think, and really create some good engagement through that. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. I loved the idea of just sharing the quiz and the video.
And by the way, great call out. Having conversations around this, just that itself is a value. I mean, I know as a parent, I mean, it was hard for me to have the kinds of conversations. Anyways, Chuck
I have
or
a comment on
Tim.
that, but I want Chuck to go because he's been waiting and his arm's tired from holding it.
I know. Let's let his
But
virtual
we'll
hand down.
circle back. Go ahead, Chuck.
It's funny you're talking about this because I have two high school kids, and personal finance and accounting is something that they're working through right now as a class. And I've been thinking about and trying to figure out, okay, this is an obvious need. There's no doubt about it. And one of the topics that I'm trying to put together is working with a financial advisor and talk about budgeting and things like that, because I know credit's important. And I think that that's great. But I'll just use my kids as an example. They have no real comprehension of what things cost, and what your cash flow needs to look like. They don't see paper dollars anymore. All I see is a card, and they don't know if it's a debit card, check card, or Apple Pay, for God's sakes. They don't understand the ins and outs, the credits and debits, and the cash flow, and they have no comprehension of the importance of making choices and spending and not spending and saving and things like that, and then how that ties into credit. And so, my thought was to partner with a financial advisor. I love the idea of hitting our database and offering it to clients and their kids and families. But when I heard my kids talking about what they're learning about, I think there's some real opportunities, especially if you have some connections with the school and you bring in the parents, and you just make it I think you really can reach out and really affect the community as a whole to just to provide some education. You become that person of influence to educate the kids and the rest of their families.
So I notice we have RG on here. I'm always curious as to what RG has to say. So to the extent that you want to add anything, bro, I'll circle over to you here in a second. But I'm taking a few notes here when I was just listening, and Chuck and Dave were sharing. So the first thing that I want to establish is that I think your goal in this should be not only to touch your clients and connect with them by showing that you care about them and their family and their long-term generational wealth, as Ryan Grant has labeled it for many years now, but to also establish authority. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm completely contradicting Kristen and Dave, but I'm a little worried about the idea of my job is to just gather people and play a bunch of videos. And I know that that's not what you said. So I'm just wanting to create some clarity. I think that you would want to utilize the resources that are provided by First Home IQ to assist in providing valuable content. And yet, like when you take the assessment quiz, the comprehension quiz as an example that Kristen used, I still think that you want to build a little bit of a presentation around that to where you have periods of time when you're going through that content that may be something that is provided to you through First Home IQ, and you're sharing some wisdom. Because ultimately, the objective of this is for you to walk away with authority, to where they view you as the authority figure, because that's what's gonna get them to come to you with questions, which is what you really want. You want them. So I was playing around as I was listening. I'm like, all right, so how would I break this down? So first of all, I would create a presentation, and some of it could be in conjunction with the material that you have, to help facilitate the dialogue. But you still need to be the authority in this dialogue, and it could be a few classes, as we talked about. Secondly, is I would ensure that there's a call to action at the end. Any presentation that you ever do with anyone should always have what's next. What are we driving this to? Like, we don't want to just leave it at, hey, thank you very much, and it was great hearing from you, and I'll never talk to you again. No, we want it to be a next step. I'm not talking about a hard sell at all. I'm just talking about, like, here's what's available. So, like, I think that a call to action that just would make sense is that I'm here to schedule private conversations with you and your family to the extent that you have questions and or are interested in looking at what it might look like to invest in a piece of real estate. Like, that's what I want to invite you to do, a private group call. But don't just leave it completely open-ended and hope they fill in the blank and hope that they reach out to you. You need to, at the end of this educational session, let them know how to connect with you, how to schedule time with you, and how and what they would get and learn in addition in a private call. Okay, now the two other things that I want to say are this: like, how would I get people to the call? Right? Like, we could talk all day long about like having a great call and preparing a great presentation, but if two people show up to it, it's not all that valuable. For me, this may sound a little bit outlandish to you, but I would do a really nice printed invitation that I'd put in the mail. Um, People don't get a lot of mail anymore. And when you do, you open it because there's not as many solicitations as there used to be. Um, and I would get like, almost think of like a wedding invitation, you know, like something that like you're going to open it, like no doubt, like you get it and you're like, wow, there's what's in here, like this is legit. Like, spend the money. Like, it might cost you, you know, $1,000 to invite, you know, 200 people, or excuse me, 500 people to a call, but you're going to get way more people to turn out if they see this beautiful invitation. You know, you and your family are cordially invited to blah, 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 you know, an education on how to build generational wealth hosted by Tim Braheem, or whatever you want to put it. You guys could nuance it yourself. And I'd sandwich that with 2 voice broadcasts. So I would send out a voice broadcast to my database with excitement saying, you know, hey, it's Tim Braheem with First Rate Financial. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm dropping a special invitation to a private event to you in the mail that you definitely want to attend. That's going to have a meaningful impact on your family and, most importantly, on your children and your legacy. It's an educational event on first-time homebuyer intelligence. There is an epidemic of, you know, whatever. I'm probably getting a little verbose now. I'd probably keep it a little bit tighter, but be on the lookout for the invite. Then I'd hit them with the invite. 2 days later, they get it in the mail. And then 3 days after that, I'd follow up with another voice broadcast saying, hey, I just wanted to make sure you got the invitation. Remember to RSVP at this link or whatever it is. You're going to get way more people to the call if you spend a little bit of money and a little bit of time thinking through that little 3-pronged approach. And then the last thing that I want to say is this: excuse my language, okay? I'm not particularly politically incorrect, and sometimes I like to use profanity to capture people's attention. Fucking prepare, okay? Show up as a pro. Like, take this seriously. This is like a huge opportunity for you. If you get 50 people on a call and you crush it, and 7 or 8 or 9 of those people want to set an appointment because they're inspired. Like, they're like, wow, like I learned so much. Like, my kids are, you know, and now now you have the opportunity to say, look, we're going to do another one, and we'd like you to invite your, you know, your extended family or your friends who have kids the same age or whatever. I mean, that's where this thing could get legs. But if it's a zero-sum game, you either knock it out of the park and they're all like, wait, are you going to have another one of these? Because I have people that I want to send to this that I care about, or they're going to be like, yeah, that was okay. It's one or the other. So if you're going to do this, do it right. Like, really crush it. Thanks for letting me go off there for a minute.
That was awesome, Tim. And I know the community that we have and the people that are involved in this mission. And we have some of the best marketers. We have some of the best teachers. We have some of the best advisors in America that are going to get this memo. So I know it's going to work. I know I've been interviewing a lot of loan officers lately around how to win, like rate and term refis have started to come in. And I'm hearing some pretty incredible success stories where they're doing a call, a text, and an email on the same day. So you brought in the letter, but what are your thoughts on, let's just say it's a database of 500. And I by the way, I loved the idea of let's throw some direct mail in, because just pouring into a family and saying, hey, I want to help educate your family around homeownership preparedness. I mean, it's common knowledge that we have a financial literacy crisis in America. Like, you say that and everybody nods their head. It's common knowledge that there's an affordability challenge. And it's also common knowledge that I think just about every parent, whether they have always owned a home or whether they're a generational renter,
Mm.
they want their kids to have home ownership. So I think there's a huge brand play in just spending the money and really doing this. But what is your thoughts on how would you do the multi-channel touch point? You know, text, email, call. Because right now I'm leaning towards the letter, and for maybe 50 out of 500, I'm going to
Mm.
really do a multi-channel touch point, and it's not going to be just a voice broadcast. I mean, it's going to be a text and a personal email from me.
Yeah. I
Thoughts?
mean, no, I don't disagree with that at all. Look, I mean, you know this because you and I communicate with each other. I'm a huge fan of voice memos as an example. I mean, they're quick and easy to do. I mean, I can bang out. I mean, I've had times where I've sent, I've had a targeted list of people that I want to reach out to in a personal way, and I can knock out 30 voice memos in an hour. I'm just saying the same thing. I'm just putting a new salutation in the front. Hey, Dave, it's Tim Braheem at First Rate. And I just wanted to send you a personal voice memo and just say, I really highly recommend you attend this call. I sent you the invitation. It's going to be super powerful. Hope to see you and your family there. Let me know if you have any questions, RSVPs, whatever. I mean, and then just do
Boom.
it again.
Yeah, no, and so just like Tim said, prepare, be a pro. This is an opportunity to lean into families in a way that's incredibly unique, in a way that's incredibly thoughtful, and in a way that is incredibly valuable. Again, families, here's the deal. The biggest problem is not lack of down payment assistance programs. The biggest problem in America is lack of awareness. Most Americans at scale don't even know they don't need 20%. Most parents who have equity don't know that they could help their kid buy a duplex or a triplex and possibly pay for college. So there is a whole educate a family around getting
No,
creative, getting
Dave,
scrappy,
Dave,
and
don't know that they in certain states like California and have the ability to just put in an ADU. There's like, I mean, like there's talk about like buying like a single family that has just a little bit of land, and next thing you know, you got a duplex, and there's financing for that. I mean, there's a lot to educate people on. And then, by the way, don't forget, if you start to really develop, I mean, I used to do this with live events. Okay, so I do have some frame of reference. Like I would host a live event for my entire database twice a year. And I would have the title company, I'd rent a room at the Hyatt across the freeway from me, and the title company would cater in a cappuccino bar and desserts, and it would be like at 7 o'clock at night. But I would bring in financial advisors and CPAs to also present at those events, and they would get access to my client base. Now, think about this for a minute. You do a great job on this, and people are like, this education is super valuable. Then you can do another one. You can invite a CPA that you're targeting and have them come in and speak on a Zoom call for 20 or 30 minutes and get access to 50 or 60 people. You want to talk about having a unique selling proposition to go after an accountant for a reciprocal referral relationship. There's one for you right there. Right. So there's a lot that you can do with this, but that's why I'm saying make this your niche. Like you got to be an expert at it. Like I own my database and I educate the hell out of them and their lineage, their legacy, their long-term family.
so by the way, you just added something else super compelling and super powerful. Part of how this platform has been designed is that it's purpose and profits, impact and income. Like, hey, this is a problem in America. Let's lean in. But if you do this, you're going to get loans. And you just added partnering with financial advisors. So there's a whole long game where not only are you serving families, creating opportunities to sell homes, you're bringing this to other professionals and partnering. You could be doing this. Like, guys, if you did this and you had a really successful program, you could bring this to a realtor and say, hey, let's do this with your database now. I want to host, let's lean into your families. Like, we have realtors that instead of just door knocking and doing the typical realtor door knocking to try to like, hey, you want to talk about selling your home? They're leading with, hey, I want to make sure you're aware of this incredible nonprofit that is helping educate kids and families on home ownership. And there's a theory that if I lead with that, I might have more quality conversations and create better connections. So this could be a whole strategy to partner with financial advisors and realtors. Any thoughts on that, Tim?
Oh, I want to kick it over to RG. He just made a post and I think he may have something to say. You said you've been doing these, bro?
Ryan Grant, step up.
Is he frozen?
I don't know. We know he knows how to use Zoom.
He's got a smug look on his face, that's for sure.
He's deep in thought.
There you go. He's back. You're on mute, bro.
He's muted.
Well, I thought he knew how to use Zoom.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
There we go. Oh.
Your mic's not working.
We like what
So
you have to
guys,
say.
we have one of America's best mortgage advisors and leaders of mortgage advisors. There's not a lot of executives that have turned more loan officers into mortgage coaches and advisors than Ryan. Ryan, you here with us, buddy?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Boom.
Boom.
Oh, strange. I don't know what happened. So I was just saying, yes, we've done quite a few of these with our business partners, and we bring in a financial professional that they work with, right? So we can get another partnership there, but they'll just send a message out to their database talking about, how investing in real, and they oftentimes do them for their people who already own homes. A lot of times people are trying to do first time home buyer events, and what we found is a lot of times people don't want to show up to those events because there's a lot of fear around, maybe not qualifying or not working, and they just don't want other people to like know that they might be in that space. It's the reason why most people don't tell anyone they're buying a home until they're already approved to buy a home, right? You just don't want that pressure. But when you market to existing homeowners with your agents and then you talk to them about financial transition planning, how they get from one home to the next, it opens up a ton of opportunities that people just can't do the mental gymnastics on themselves. And what could they do with the proceeds of the sale? A lot of times they think they have to put all those proceeds into the next home. And that's where financial planners come into play and CPAs come into play, right? So love that concept, Tim. And I think that we can do it. And it doesn't even need, we just do it in small little conference rooms. Obviously, you did it at a very high level. But I think that the one thing I'll say, and then I'll turn it back over to you guys just for time, is that I've been spending probably the last 8 years of my career trying to change the way that the average consumer saw me. And what I realized is that if I can start seeing them differently, right, that is what changes everything, right? They start out as someone who is struggling to buy their first home with very little in assets. But if I can see them for their fullest potential, and as I'm talking to them, if they feel that I can see a much better future for them than they see for themselves, that's what gives me what Tim was talking about, the authority, right? It also gives me the ability, and they invite me in because I show them a future that I can see that likely they can't, right? And that's really changed a lot for us.
I want to plus one what you just said, and I hope everybody connected on that because it is just such a truth that if you want people to like you, it starts with liking them. But think about this, guys, as a first home IQ ambassador, you have just now taken on a bigger role than just winning a consumer. You've taken on the role that I want to help your family achieve the American dream. And so you're going deeper in terms of how much you care. And I just have to think that there's a power of attraction that your purpose and profits. You're gonna drive a mission and you're gonna connect deeper with people and you'll be rewarded for that. Any thoughts on that, Tim, after hearing that?
I do. Trying to, here we go. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen for a minute just to validate what you and RG are saying. You guys see this?
We do.
See that quote from Dale Carnegie?
Boom. Double tap.
Right there. Yeah. I mean, it's the formula is it's this is a whole rabbit hole that I don't want to go down because if we only have 5 minutes, but the more you serve, the more the rest just takes care of itself. Because when you serve people and you truly have their best interests in mind, and like I said at the beginning, I mean, the key to their heart is through their children. That's where reciprocity comes in, and that's where loyalty comes from. Is loyalty comes from feeling like, you know what, you took care of me and now I want to be loyal to you. So I think that that's the beauty of what we have available here through First Home IQ is a very noble cause that you should all feel very proud to represent, because there is this epidemic of lack of knowledge, and you have the ability to fill that gap and make a difference. And I would just encourage you to just consistently think about, how do I give that wisdom? How do I become more wise and become more of an authority? And how do I give that away? And then trust that it's going to pay off in spades. There are going to be people like you. I mean, my mind starts to spin when we talk about this, because then I start thinking about, well, then there's going to be people on those calls there. You set up the private call, and then there's going to be people on those calls that you can talk about doing a reverse mortgage, right? I mean, like it has legs. It has so many different directions. It starts with you being a teacher and having something valuable to teach, which is going to instigate questions. I mean, I'm sure you guys know enough about reverse mortgages to know that what you can do from a generational wealth perspective with that is pretty substantial as well. So, becoming knowledgeable on those types of products, first-time homebuyer products, reverse, non-QM, and then teaching those classes on that, like and couching it into the IQ component with the quiz and all the other presentations, I think is the way to go. I want to turn it over to Kristen, because we've been doing all the talking, and I know that she always has some really intelligent things to say.
No, I've just been soaking it up and thinking about all the ways that we can support our community through the things that you've talked about. So, just to kind of wrap up, what are some of the, you've talked about marketing, getting people there, we've talked about content. Is there anything else that, you kind of briefly talked about how you continue to nurture that and create leads from that, but is there anything else that would be helpful as we think about like a whole playbook in terms of becoming that advisor through these kinds of educational pieces?
I mean, I just think that it's a constant, it's not an event, it's a process. Okay. So the process is consistently staying connected with your past client database and establishing your value with them by giving them things that they need. And that takes and that's the beauty of what you've created, because you have things that they clearly need. And it takes some strategic thinking, like, not just being so in your business all the time that you're not stepping out of it. So I applaud you all for being on this call today, because that's what you've done. You've stepped away from it and said, all right, let's think creatively here. And I would encourage you to continue to do that. Carve out a half a day. It deserves at least that. Maybe you need 2 half days. Go somewhere quiet and really sketch out, all right, who's my target? What's the presentations that I have at my disposal that I want to practice and I feel passionate about? How am I going to go about inviting them? What's my call to action? Um, and what's my next one? I mean, is it the same one again? Maybe. I mean, or is it that you have a three class course? I mean, but spending the time necessary to really think this through and to master it. And again, the better you are at it, the more people that are going to come back to future ones as well.
And if anyone is those of you who are ambassadors on the call, we have an office hours every other Wednesday at the same time. And we would love to strategize with you on those types of things, or share, some of the presentation materials and resources that can help build this strategy with you. So, and if you are not an ambassador and are interested, you can find information on our website, firsthomiq.com/ambassador. Thank you so much, Tim, for spending time. And Dave, any last words you have to share?
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for everyone, whether you're watching the recording of this. Thank you. But get out and have impact. And just want to remind folks, while what Tim just laid out, it will take some emotional courage to lean in and serve families at a new level. But you could also share the quiz. The quiz takes less than 3 minutes to fill out. It is the tip of the spear of the educational experience. So get out there and just start having this conversation in the marketplace. Start sharing the quiz to all your pre-approvals for first-time home buyers. The more you have the conversation in light, simple ways, the more confidence you'll get. And guys, we are the mortgage industry. We can make a difference in America in a very large way if everyone that's tuned into this actually takes action. So hope you'll take action. Hope you'll help get the word out. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you for
everyone.
joining. Kristen, safe travels. You need a 6-hour
Yes.
time difference coming up on you.
I
So
know.
try to adjust quickly.
Yeah.
See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.